Hi everyone. Today I want to continue on with my discussions of the films of Michael Crichton from the 1970s, what I'm calling Michael Crichton's summertime movies. It's good escapist kind of movies. I've been reading some of his novels that these films are based upon. Westworld from 1973 is the movie we'll talk about today. This is Michael Crichton's debut feature film. He had made Pursuit, a TV movie that I talked about a few days ago, but this is his first film that he directed, and it also is not based on one of his novels. This is an original screenplay. There might have been a novelization of Westworld post the movie, because this was a hit movie. And as with Crichton, you're always, one thing you can count on, you're going to get a very imaginative premise that seems to be something new and different. It seems to be sort of groundbreaking. And again, we're talking about 1973 here. So Westworld involves this amusement park complex where Westworld is one part of. There's also a Roman world set in the days of ancient Rome, and then there's also a medieval time amusement center set out somewhere in the desert. And these amusement parks are populated by robots that look absolutely human, indistinguishable. You can't tell the guests from the robots. So it involves like a total immersion in a interactive kind of experience, a video game that we're inside this video game. And operators in a control center, they set up scenarios and they control the robots so that the guests get very exciting scenarios that in Westworld are based on familiar situations in Western movies. So we get gunfights, we get barroom brawls, we get bank robberies, we get jailbreaks, and in which the guests are allowed to shoot the robots. Now, why are the wonder is, why can't they shoot? If they're indistinguishable, they could be shooting another guest, but as everybody is dressed up in Western garb, but it's based on the heat. So these guns have to if they have a detector whether it's warm-blooded or whether it's cold, like the robots are. We get a lot of this information on in the opening scene where James Brolin and Richard Benjamin are being flown to the amusement park. Brolin has been there before. His buddy Richard Benjamin is recovering from a very sad divorce, and he's down in the doldrums, and so he's going to get his spirits raised by participating in this sort of kind of male fantasy world of cowboys and gunfights. And so we get a lot of this information before we even get to the amusement center. And of course, the problem arises, and you can tell it from the poster, where the robots begin to malfunction and they run amok. Does this sound like Jurassic Park? Well, of course. This is the genesis of what would be in another 20 years, I guess, Jurassic Park, where Crichton and Steven Spielberg created this franchise that has gone on for almost 30 years now. Westworld is a lot less production value-wise. Is a lot less than what you're going to find in Jurassic Park, however. So, with Crichton, and that I mentioned in the previous videos, I also did one on Andromeda Strain and Pursuit. Both this fear and fascination with science, that look at what we can create as human beings. We're creating all this just incredible stuff, but we got to be afraid because we might lose control of that which we are creating. And the movie, and Crichton is often very prescient in what is to come because, for instance, we get as the robots malfunction, there's a long scene, or there's a scene where the creators and the scientists get together. Well, what are we going to do? And there's a move we need to shut down immediately because something's wrong. And then there's also, and they discuss it as if it had been an infection. It started at Roman world and now it's come into Westworld. And they say, well, how can robots have infection? But Crichton is sort of anticipating the computer virus here. And so we get, this scene originally was much longer, and it was cut down because Crichton, and what he was really trying to say, according to interviews, is a critique of corporate greed, is that, we need to make money, we'll take the risk, because money is far more important than, than worrying about some minor malfunction. At least they convince themselves it's something they can control, even though the scientists who are working, because they have to take these robots back in, the scientists are working and say, we can't figure it out. So, and the film was made at MGM in the James Aubrey era, and this was, Aubrey was running MGM, and he didn't really seem to care much about movies. He was constantly giving directors a hard time. In fact, another novel by Crichton was made, I think it was called The Case of Need. It was made into a movie called The Carey Treatment. Crichton didn't have anything to do with this. This was a Blake Edwards movie that had terrible post-production problems, and Aubrey had a reputation for giving directors a hard time, well, not just Blake Edwards. But they assured Crichton that he would get his shot. It was not a big budget movie. It was $1 million budget, which was not insignificant, but he had to toe the line. He had to shoot this movie in 30 days. He did not have control over the casting. And this is the era, a very short era. Richard Benjamin was a movie star, and he doesn't look like a movie star, and he didn't continue on as a movie star. He is a good actor, and don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure that Benjamin would have been the first choice of any director, because he is basically the lead actor in here. So even though he was he didn't have control of the casting, there was a casting coup in that they got Yul Brynner to play the main robot in the movie, and he's the villain. He plays the villain as the robot. And they dressed Yul Brynner in the clothes. They didn't dress him in the same clothes, but they based his wardrobe, his Western-style wardrobe. Everybody wears Western garb in Westworld. They based it on what his costumes were for the Magnificent Seven. He looks terrifically authentic looking. He looks like he just stepped out of the Magnificent Seven. And he just gives a terrific performance. I mean, he doesn't have to do a lot, but his facial expressions, robotic expressions, it's chilling. And of course, he's sort of playing the Frankenstein monster, the creation that runs out, that gets out of control. So that was a casting coup, and to get somebody like Brynner, who was a movie star, to play this role, I came across something where it said that he was in dire need of money, so they were able to get him cheap, something like $75,000. And Crichton's visual style here is very similar to his TV movie Pursuit. It's very unadorned, very simple. He just moves the story along. No visual flourishes, and by design, in an interview in somewhere. There is a website, michaelcrichton.com, I think it is, where we get access to a lot of what Crichton thought about his movies. And he was critical of directors like he actually names Martin Scorsese for drawing attention to the director. You know, it's the brilliance of the director. He didn't want to do that. And this unadorned visual style, very similar to the visual style of, or the literary style of his books. There's no great literary flourishes there as well. The story moves along. It's designed to be a page turner. He often said that he designs his book so that somebody who gets on the plane in New York City and picks up, you know, one of his novels can pretty much read it by the time he gets to Chicago or Atlanta or LA for sure. And the time will go by fast. So the experience wore him out. Not only did we have this tight shooting schedule where he could only do like 1 or 2 takes, the post-production was pretty difficult as well, because he wanted to show us what the robots saw in a kind of digital way, but that had not been done. This is pre-computer graphics, so this is basically one of the first foundational elements of Westworld for what was to come. And again, Michael Crichton always sort of on the cutting edge of what is to come. But they had a tough time doing it digitally. Very effective, and especially for 1973, of course, by today's standards, technical advancements, might not be that impressive. But I saw this film in 1973, and it was pretty impressive. But like I say, it wore him out, so he wasn't involved in movies for the next 5 years. The Terminal Man was made in the meantime from one of his novels. Mike Hodges wrote and directed that film, but it wasn't from '73 to '78 that Crichton wrote a screenplay based on someone else's novel, Robin Cook, for the movie Coma. And in that 5-year period, he was working on his novel, The Great Train Robbery, in which he got away from this thriller, the scientific thriller, technological warning kind of movie, where he went back to Victorian age for a very intricate and very entertaining heist movie with a great cast. Donald Sutherland and Sean Connery were in that movie, and I really enjoyed it. You can see he put more work into The Great Train Robbery than he had into these technological thrillers. The movie did not open in New York City or LA. It opened in other big cities around the country, which was an unusual distribution strategy, but it did well in these outlying cities. So by the time it hit New York City, and I read some of the contemporaneous New York newspaper reviews of Westworld, it had already had a reputation. I think it ended up making something like $7 million from a $1 million budget, which is not bad. It was a hit. I've never seen the TV version, the TV series. I don't know whether it has much to do with the original source, whether they take the name and the basic idea. And then there was a short-lived television series of Westworld that did not, and this was back in the 1970s, I believe, and it was canceled pretty quick. But this, again, a very entertaining movie. Next up is The Terminal Man. So thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are always welcome. Take care.